This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by lynda.com, the unparalleled online video training library. For a free 10-day unlimited trial, visit lynda.com/macvoices. And by Casper, a better mattress for a better night's sleep. To find out more, try one for 100 days and get a $50 discount. Visit casper.com/macvoices. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the Talk of the Mac community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we have something a little bit different for you, a little interesting. We've talked to the folks at Macphun before, but never when they had such an extensive product out. It's always been, we've kind of highlighted bits and pieces, but this time they've got the Creative Kit 2016 out, and I've got Kevin Leroux here to show it to us. Kevin, it's great to have you.
Hi, Chuck. Hey, thanks for having me aboard.
Hey, it's an absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. I'm anxious to see what somebody that has some knowledge can do with Creative Kit 2016, because I'm the worst kind of amateur photographer. I take pictures, I want quick hit fixes and move on. And I'm hoping that maybe you can solve some problems for me.
Well, we're going to show you how to solve those problems and make your pictures better very quickly, still keeping with that motto of one click or very fast edits. But I think you'll be amazed at how fast you can take an average photo and make it spectacular, something you'd like to share online or share with your family.
And I'm looking for those spectacular photos, Kevin, so yeah. Good. Take us through, before we do, for the folks that may not know Macphun, and that's Macphun.
Right.
Please take us through the company and kind of where you are, where you've been, where you are, and where you're going.
Sure, absolutely. I appreciate you asking that question. Just a quick personal note to kind of set myself in the minds of your viewers and listeners. I actually bleed rainbow. I started with a Mac software company in early 1987 called Silicon Beach Software, and we made some fantastic games and graphics utilities. I actually started a company in the mid-90s making a HyperCard replacement software called SuperCard. So I've used Macs pretty much all my adult life, and I was really pleased to be asked to come aboard the Macphun team, because it kind of combines my passion for amateur photography. I've never earned a dime on any of my photos, so I would never call myself a pro. With my love of Mac software. And so fast forward to 2008, Macphun was started by a couple of ex-video game developers, actually. And they got together, they saw where the iPhone was going and the start of the iTunes App Store, and began programming all kinds of different applications. At one point, there were, I think, nearly 70 apps they had in the iTunes Store. And the beautiful thing about that is that when the Mac App Store came about, this is going back to late 2010, early 2011, it was a very natural progression for the Macphun engineers to move some of their more popular mobile titles over to the Mac desktop. And so where we find ourselves in 2015 is with a suite of very powerful, easy to use, very creative photo applications, as well as still having some apps on the mobile side. But on the desktop side, that's really where our heart is at this point in time. So the Creative Kit is a milestone for us. We've historically, over the past 2-3 years, been, as you say, developing individual applications. You and I have talked on a couple of show floors in the past. But we've been developing individual applications that solve specific problems. Well, the real magic and the real power comes when you kind of tie all those things together. And that's what the Creative Kit 2016 does. It takes 6 of our most popular applications, which we'll talk about during the course of the interview here, and brings them together into a single installer, very convenient, single key. But I think just as importantly, people are getting a lot of power from each standalone, but they're able to pass images back and forth between each one of the applications, and really take your image, I think, on a magical journey to wherever your artistic vision lies. In addition, it's important to note that the products in the Creative Kit work within other applications. So they run as standalone apps, double-clickable standalone apps, but they also work within Photoshop or Lightroom or Aperture workflow as what we call plugins or external editors, as well as working as extensions in the new Photos for Mac. And so we've tried to make the software as accessible as possible within every environment people are using for their photos.
I love this approach because this means I don't have to have Photoshop. I don't have to have Aperture or Lightroom. If I want to do just what I sort of described as that I do most of the time with my photos, just use the applications for what they can do, as opposed to loading up all these other high-powered programs that have pretty hefty learning curves. I can approach it. I can play with it. I can experiment with it instead of turning my photography into work.
Yeah, or a chore. And I'm glad you used the word experiment, because I think you'll find in our applications, it's very easy to explore and discover and experiment with a range of looks for your photo. I mean, I don't know what's tripping your trigger today, but maybe it's black and white, maybe it's a more HDR-ish look. It doesn't matter. And when you're locked into a Photoshop or a Lightroom workflow, oftentimes you feel pressured to kind of constrain your editing workflow and your exploration workflow towards a point out there. But in the Macphun tools, you can explore 5 or 10 different looks in 2 minutes, and then hone in on the 1 or 2 that you like and move those directions. But it really opens up some creative possibilities. I've been very pleasantly surprised at. Even in my personal work, how I think it's extended my creative vision in ways that I wouldn't have predicted.
Today's edition of MacVoices is sponsored by lynda.com, the unparalleled online training library. Get a full free 10-day trial at lynda.com/MacVoices. There are lots of great things about lynda.com. Things like their constant addition to their amazing collection of video tutorials, with a total of just under 4,000 titles. Of course, it will probably be more than 4,000 by the time you hear this. Things like their series that bring you shorter form, new tips on a regular basis on topics such as design and video gear. Things like their articles, because lynda.com doesn't just do video. Things like their iOS app that lets you download courses for offline viewing. It's amazing just how much learning you can do while the guy in the center seat is wasting his time watching TV reruns on the plane's video system. Things like the fact that you have access to a broad spectrum of topics, from business to photography, software development to education. Things like the fact that you get the kind of training that gets you up to speed on a new topic, or in-depth training that gives you expert-level expertise. Things like the roster of amazing instructors who aren't just lynda.com authors, but who work in the fields they teach in. So they aren't just reading from a manual, but they have lived the topic. Things like the fact that you can try lynda.com free for a full 10 days by visiting lynda.com/MacVoices. That 10 days includes everything, not just the articles and not just the series. Every single video course is at your beck and call for 240 hours by visiting lynda.com/MacVoices. You can watch as much as you want to in those first 10 days, and then sign up to keep learning. It's going to be a long, long time before you run out of things to watch. One more time, lynda.com/MacVoices for your free 10-day trial. Use that URL to let lynda.com know that you appreciate their support of MacVoices, just like I do. Thanks to lynda.com for supporting this week's edition of MacVoices. So before we get into the programs, how about just a couple details here? You mentioned single installer, single key. That's fantastic. If I, as a part of the process of installing, am I picking the applications I can load these into, or is it multiple processes to get them? Let's say I have Photoshop and Lightroom and Aperture all on my machine.
Right. So it's actually, we've made it super convenient. During that installation process, there is a window that comes up that identifies the host, what we call the host applications that are already present on your Macintosh. And you're given the choice to install the plugins in all of those host applications that we see on your machine, or only one of them, or some of them. And then, so that's part of that whole installation process. Oh, you've got Photoshop and Lightroom, as I do on my machine. I'll just click those, click Continue Installation, and it'll move those plugins directly into the correct plugin folder, so they appear within Photoshop and Lightroom. Now, Photos is a little bit different. This is the new version of Photos that comes with El Capitan, which is the new Mac release. We were actually, I believe, the first photo editing company to have our products fully Photos compatible day one. And the mechanism that Apple's provided us is this thing, as I said, called extensions. But what you literally have to do is you have to make sure in system preferences, in the extensions preference, in the Photos area, you have to physically tick a checkbox for the applications that you want to appear in your Photos app when you're running it. So as far as I know, it wasn't possible to sort of jam those into Photos, automatically as we do with Photoshop and Lightroom. So I can imagine it was a convention of the Apple experience that we were constrained with there. But nonetheless, it's super easy to do. It takes 2 minutes, and those Macphun apps will automatically appear in that list, but you just have to check the checkbox to get them to appear in the application.
Got it. Again, before we start, anything else we should know about the installation process or hardware requirements for any of this? Because I know you made a point of saying Photos in El Capitan. Different experience for Photos in Yosemite or anything else?
They just don't.
That's right.
If you're running Mavericks or Yosemite, it's just not possible.
Sorry.
I will say that all of our software requires 10.8 and above, OS X 10.8 and above. We're running in most modern versions of Photoshop. If you're in the pre-Creative Cloud versions of Photoshop and Lightroom, I think that we can run in those last versions. But I think most everybody has converted over to the cloud subscription at this point. So no, I mean we try to play nice with everybody. From that standpoint. Yeah,
sorry, that was a dumb question because I wasn't thinking about the fact that Photos. Yosemite did not support these. Yep. So okay.
We were actually waiting. We were very excited when we heard about Photos and the extensions, and so we've been kind of waiting on the sidelines for a year while Apple finished up their editing extensions and how they were going to kind of present that to the customers. And so we were ready day one because we'd all been anxious to provide the kind of editing power I think people were interested in with Aperture. I mean, there was a little bit, let's call a spade a spade. I think there was a little bit of a letdown in the first version of Photos where it didn't have as much editing power as people had expected, and there was no way to get it, right? Without the editing extensions, there was just no way to get it. I think there were some deficiencies in the digital asset management side that they've tried to mitigate and improve upon. And at the end of the day, it's the software that's installed with every Mac, so they will get fantastic adoption and usage out of it as people move from iPhotos and Aperture, and we want to be there to provide that editing power that folks have come to expect. And it's a smooth process in Photos.
Okay, so I think the time has come. Let's take a look at some of this and see what kind of results we can get.
Okay, so where I wanted to start for your viewers was to look at our website real quickly because it's a nice way to kind of get a gestalt or an overview of what the Creative Kit actually is and what it contains. And then we'll drop into each one of the individual software applications and work through some cool photos. This is our homepage. As Chuck mentioned earlier, as you mentioned earlier, it's MACPHUN, Macphun.com. And this is our homepage, and we're obviously promoting our Creative Kit. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Creative Kit button here and kind of show you our product page. And at the bottom of that page, you can see that the Creative Kit contains 6 different applications. Tonality is our black and white editor. Intensify lets you add details to your images very easily. Focus lets you kind of direct people's eyes toward towards the most important subjects of your photos, using blurring and vignetting. MacVoices is our fantastic noise reduction tool. And noise shows up in low light photos, and MacVoices will take it away in a snap. Speaking of snaps, Snap Heal is our product that allows you to very quickly and easily remove objects, dust spots, telephone wires, pesky tourists, all kinds of things from your images. It does a really clever background fill. We've got a number of different algorithms that will help you do that. And then FX Photo Studio, this is a product that's been around for a while, but we threw it in the Creative Kit because it opens up the world of filters and sort of these one-click looks. Very creative product. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to close out of my browser at this point, and we'll go ahead and just drop out of that. Okay, so here we are at my Mac desktop with several of the Creative Kit applications, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk through each one of them first. As I mentioned, Intensify is great for enhancing all kinds of details in your images. So we're just going to go ahead and launch Intensify. You can see that we've got a very attractive and large window in the middle. It gives us a great preview of the image that we're going to work on. We've got buttons across the top here. We've got Open Image. Batch processing is brand new for the Creative Kit 2016. This is where you can develop a look and then apply it across multiple images. We've got fantastic save and share type of activities. So we can open the image and transfer it into other Creative Kit applications. We can share it on social, or of course we can export or save the image out to different formats like JPEG, TIFF, and Photoshop. Got our zooming tools that we'll be using through the course of the demonstration, before-after comparisons. And this is where the real magic happens. Our control panel right here gives us all kinds of control over the image itself. I'm actually going to start on the preset side, because this is a great way to very quickly, we talked earlier about sort of the one-click style presets. Let's say if I just want to immediately just enhance the details in the image, I can select with one click a crisp effect. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit, and the best place to see this is down in the grass here. So there's the before, there's the after. Come into absolute clarity. You'll see how the details in the image get a little bit crunchier, and yet the integrity of the image is preserved. So you can see it right down there. Hope that's coming through on your screen.
Yeah, that is.
Let's do something more, maybe more dramatic. So we'll try a dramatic type of look. So here's our dramatic 2 look. It's a little bit of a desaturated look. These again are very quick and easy. One-click looks to your image. There we are looking at it. I've clicked the side-by-side button. So there we are looking at the original image on the left, and let's say if we want to go into the image tuning, we can expose shadows. So you can see that we're bringing up a lot of the shadows. And if at any point in time the after image look goes too far, we've got a very handy little what we call an opacity or an amount slider here. So you can see I can very easily just sort of dial that down, to a look I might that might fit my vision a little better. So we started out here on the left with a lot of detail in the shadows. I've exposed the shadows and enhanced a little bit of detail using this preset. And again, there are over 60 or 70 presets here. I won't go through all of them, but a couple of things I do want to point out is that I can stack presets in Intensify using the Layers command. So I can come in here, I can simply add a new layer. I can name it again by double-clicking on it. I'll call it my layer. And now anything that I'm doing, actually I didn't save that. I should have, here we go. We'll go my layer, and then I have to hit the return key. So now I'm operating on my layer, and now I can go in and I can create, and add a new effect on top of that. So I've essentially exposed the shadows with the preset here, and then on the top layer that's stacked on top, I've added in this case, the spicy presets. It's a little bit more than I want. But again, if we look at the before and the after, I do that by clicking this little eyeball button there at the top. You can see the before is a little bit more muted, not kind of as cool. This is way more dramatic. Now, this may or may not fit your taste, right? A lot of photographers, want a straight up natural look to their image, and others want to kind of explore creatively on the dramatic side. So Intensify can help you with both. I'm actually going to open up a new image and work with the adjustment panel here, if you don't mind. So we'll come over here. We'll use our close button. I won't save it. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to use an image that I downloaded from the NASA Flickr gallery. These are images from the old Apollo missions, and they just made them in the public domain. I thought I'd try them on our own image. There's a blog post at macphun.com where I've written a little bit about how I've done some of this. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I might start with, I want to go more with a detailed look, and then I want to enhance some of the details. I love the foreground of this image, but it's a little bit, muted. So I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to start by doing a crisp kind of a preset. So you can see that the actually, let me go to Detail Extractor. That might be a little bit more dramatic. There we go. So there's the before.
Wow.
And you can see how sort of it looks kind of dusty and low contrast. But you can see that with the Detail Extractor preset, it's brought out all kinds of detail that we didn't see before. And at this point, though, what I want to do is I'll go ahead and add that other layer again, like I showed you before. But I'm going to flip over to the Adjust panel. You can see the histogram, and this is where a lot of the power in Intensify comes from. It's the adjustments that we're looking at right now that really drive those presets that I mentioned earlier. So again, here's my image. Let's go ahead and click this button to go fit to window again. And what I'd like to do here is I'd like to sort of darken down just sort of the foreground there. And the easiest way to do that is if I did an exposure, that would take everything down, right? Might want to boost the contrast a little bit. But what I'd like to do on this new layer is I'm going to click the gradient tool. And what a gradient tool is it's a mask that's been applied. Now this is getting a little bit more advanced, but it's a mask that's applied to your image, and I've just shown it here by clicking the show button. Right? And so this mask here allows you to apply whatever adjustments you're making into the image, but only on the part that's red right now, only on that mask. So what I might do is I might go ahead and flip that mask over. You see how I'm doing that? And now I'm simply going to move it down towards the bottom. And now I'm not going to show it anymore. But now any adjustment that I make, you can see, is only happening to that lower part of the image. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, you've just completely changed the image for the better.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to actually go ahead and add a little saturation and vibrance to the image to kind of bring out the gold here. Then I might increase the contrast a little bit. So again, Intensify, the whole purpose of the product is to bring out those lovely details that are normally hidden in your images. Whether you're shooting with a snapshot camera, or whether you're, just happen to be shaking the camera a little bit, Intensify can really bring out some of those details. So we have 4 proprietary algorithms for doing that. We've got something that we call Pro Contrast. We've got Structure. Contrast, of course, is that dealing with edge detection, right? Contrast between tonal ranges. What Structure does is it works kind of between those edges, kind of on the surfaces between edges. Details, of course, is just enhancing objects. And microsharpness is our proprietary method for really operating at almost a pixel level. It's great for portraits and things like that. So the cool thing about Intensify and the way we've chosen to apply details, a lot of software will make you sort of paint it on. What we do is we say, hey, look, let's make this super easy for everybody. Let's let you apply details based on tonal range. So I can add a little pro contrast on the shadows and midtones. I might add a little structure to the shadows and midtones, right? And so what I'm doing here is I'm adjusting the application of detail based on those tonal ranges, because every picture has a tonal range, right? Highlights, midtones, and shadows. So then as we go through here, we're working on the image, and we're making it look more and more like we want it. And finally, as a kind of a finishing step, I can add a vignette. And the nice thing about our vignettes is we can place the center of those vignettes wherever we want it. So we can keep it in the center. If we want to draw attention over to the moon buggy, we can. We'll place the center there, and you can see the vignette. I'm kind of overclocking it here, but you can see that vignette coming in. And let's go ahead and we'll go in here. We'll place the center and do that vignette. Okay, so we started out, and that's a little bit too much, so I'm going to back that off. So we started off with this. Okay. There's the before, there's the after, and there they are side by side.
I'm really hoping that this comes through because of course after we record this, then it gets compressed and uploaded and all that. And I'm hoping that the dramatic difference comes through for folks, because the sitting here watching you do it, the difference is truly dramatic.
Yeah, it's astonishing to me how much detail our camera sensors do pick up, and with a little bit of technology, we can really bring that stuff out. So that's a little bit about Intensify, and I want to actually show you our other flagship product called Tonality now, if we can move into that.
Yeah. Before you get too far along, two quick questions. For question number one, you had mentioned about being able to move between applications. Is this just a matter of taking that photo saved and then moving it into one of the other applications?
Yeah, in fact, I think what I'll do now is, let me just make sure I've got the right. Yeah, I'll tell you what I'll do now is I'll actually start with our Snap Heel product next, and then I'll move it into into a more creative output. So what I'll do is I'll just start with a real simple shot that I actually took on a photo walk a couple weeks ago, and this is a shot of a seawall in La Jolla, California. This is called Children's Pool, and it was actually, there's a very famous woman here in town, Ellen Browning Scripps, who many years ago built this, donated this land and built this with her vast fortunes. So here we are in Snap Heel 2016, and you can see this is a classic sort of tourist picture, right? I love the seawall. I love everything going on here, but I'm kind of bummed that I had some swimmers in the shot, and I had this person in the frame that I didn't see. I think what I'll start with is I'll start by simply cropping, right? Cropping this person out, and that doesn't do anything to the integrity of my image, but it allows me to again kind of work with an image that's way more interesting, for me, and I'm almost correcting or repairing the image before I start my editing process. So again, Snap Heel's designed to replace unwanted items with a background and just magically get rid of them. We've got 3 different erasing modes. So unlike other products, we've got different algorithms based on the type of object that you're getting rid of. So in this case, if I want to get rid of the swimmers, what I'll just do is I can expand or contract my brushes. These are my selection tools. I've also got a clone stamp tool. But I'll go ahead and just come down here. I'm going to use I'm going to decrease the size of the brush, and all I do is I just mark the people that I don't want, and I hit erase. I'm using the global erasing mode here. That kind of basically takes into account all the functions of the image, and they sort of magically go away. And this is a great image to use Snap Heel for, because the texture of the ocean is very good at kind of getting rid of those objects. So we'll go like that, and then I noticed I have a couple of dust spots here. I don't know if If your camera's like anything like mine, there's there's always dust on the lens. So snap heel's a great way to get rid of those dust spots. It's a very sort of utilitarian kind of product that way. So we started off with some tourists and some dust spots. We got rid of those in a couple of clicks. And now this is to your point about moving images from one place to another. This is where the Creative Kit comes in, and the power of it. I'm actually going to take this image back into Intensify real quick. What it does is it sort of processes this. This came in as a raw file into Snap Heel. I'm moving it right into Intensify, and then I'm going to grab a preset. And one that I really like for this image that I think you guys will dig is one called Oil Paint. Now, why would we have an oil paint preset within Intensify, which is supposed to do details? Well, it's the absence of detail, right? A lot of saturation. I can dial that down if I want. But to me, this really is kind of a cool look for something that would be, it's an average cool picture, a lot of great composition. But I think the oil paint makes it really interesting and dramatic. So let's say, though, for example, I mentioned earlier that it's great to be able to explore creatively very quickly, Chuck. So let's say, for example, I don't want that view. I'm right back in Snap Heel. I can go and I can say, well, look, let's go into tonality. Let's go into our black and white tool and really try to do something interesting from a fine art black and white. And I realize this is the first time we're kind of looking at tonality, but I'll just share I'll share with you the interface, and then we can work a little bit more on this picture. As you can see, there's a lot of familial characteristics here. We've got the same sort of batch processing and sharing and cropping icons. We've got our zoom icons, and this is important. When you've been into software as long as I have, when you have a family of products, you want them to sort of act and quack like a family, and so that's where we're coming at with the user interface and the user experience here. So as with Intensify, Tonality has some terrific presets. What you're seeing here is you're seeing all kinds of tools that are available to people to do fantastic fine art black and white images. Before I get started, I'm actually going to go over to my view menu, and I'm going to go to single view mode. And what this does is it ends up collapsing all of the adjustment properties I have here into their highest level. And then when I want to use each one, I can come in and I can use this arrow. It just makes it better. So let's take a look at some of the presets. Again, I've healed my image, I've corrected it in Snap Heel, and now I'm figuring out where I want to take it creatively. We've got over 150, 160 different presets, but they're neatly categorized. I can do an architecture preset, and you can see I get these really, really nice thumbnails of all different looks that I can apply here. I can come in here if I want a little bit of a dramatic look. You go, well, Tonality is a black and white product. How can you have color into your black and white? Well, it's great for creating these desaturated looks. So it's very, very easy. Let's go ahead and choose an outdoor preset. And for grins and giggles, we'll choose the El Capitan preset. I'm going to dial that down just a little bit. Now I'm looking at this picture, and I like it very much. I'm going to collapse the presets palette now, and then I'm going to show you that the adjustments that made up the El Capitan presets are highlighted for you. So you can see in the toning area, we've added some adaptive exposure, and what that means is it's looking at areas of the photo that need to have a little bit more exposure added, and so it's not going to add exposure in the lighter parts of your image because it's not needed there. It's going to add it, down below in the seawall. Now I notice that there's a little bit more of a shadow there. I can actually recover some of those shadows by pulling that out. You can see down below, it's only impacting the shadow side of it. So that's our our tonal side. Again, there's way more capabilities and adjustments than I have time to show you when I'm trying to move through so many of these applications in the Creative Kit. But you can see that we've got some detail enhancements. So we've taken the microstructure and structure from Intensify over. You can see some of my other dust spots in there that I didn't heal earlier coming through when I enhance those structures. So I'm going to back off on that a little bit. Color filter, tone curves. If we want to drop, a lot of people who are using Photoshop or other applications, they know all about tone curves, and we've got one in here. A lot of capabilities. But what I'd like to do here is just kind of stylize the image a little bit. I'm going to go back to I'm going to go to a glow filter. Okay, and you can see if I crank it all the way up, it makes it look almost dreamy. So it is kind of a dreamy look to the entire image. So I want to apply that. And then what I'll do is I'll bring Vignette back, because I really want people to focus on the end of the seawall here. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of drop that in. And I want to feather it a little bit so you don't see any kind of a hard line. And a lot of times vignettes can be super subtle. So if I turn that off, and then turn it back on, you can see just the effect of the vignette. As you can see, it's just kind of framing it a little bit for your eye. We'll go side to side again, and you can see that in the before image that was passed over from Snap Heal, a little bit darker down in the lower left. You don't have as much emphasis on the people at the end of the seawall. Here, I think it's getting a little bit more creative and a little more interesting to my eye. I guess the last thing I'd like to do is increase the luminosity just a little bit in the center, just to give a little bit more emphasis to the people at the end of the pier. So that's a little look at tonality. Again, there's a lot of capabilities in this thing. I mean, I haven't even shown you the ability to add your own textures in. In fact, let me just go here, because this is so cool. Let's say I love that image and I might export it, but now I want to do a variation of it. I can come in here and select a texture, go to, say, a paper style texture, and then if I increase the amount, you see it's kind of introduced into the image itself. So this may not have been the texture that I would choose for this image, but the point is that the capability is here. And so when we call tonality the most complete black and white editor in the world, or the most creative, I hope I've shown you and your audience here a little bit of the power and given you a little taste of what we can do with tonality. I'll go ahead and return there. Just again, call your attention to a bunch of different presets that we've got here. If you like a vintage kind of sepia look to this thing, we can kind of come in here and give it. Let me just kind of come in here. We've got built-in textures. Again, if we want to do film emulation, we've got actual film emulation that emulates how that film would have shot the image. Were we still doing that? So there's just tons of power in this application, and actually I think it's a rather fun way to explore and experiment and discover new looks for your images very, very quickly.
You're going to cost me a lot of time here, Kevin, because this is I'm so tempted to say, hey, Kevin, why don't you apply that filter and let's see what it looks like? And I'm going to resist that because we have so much to cover.
That's right.
Talk for a second about, and I'm gathering from the dialogues that have been popping up that this is destructive editing. So we want to make sure we're working on a copy of our image.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to think about that. Certainly, if you're coming from Photoshop, you'll want to work as a smart object or copy your background image into a different layer. If you're working in Lightroom, obviously, if you do an edit in, you can choose to edit on a copy, and that's how most people do the Lightroom edits. With respect to running our software as a standalone application like we're doing right now, what I tell people to do is save an original of your file that will contain all the adjustments. And then the idea is that you can go back and you can make adjustments to that image later. But then, we're exporting these images in a variety of different file formats, and so it is destructive. However, you're sort of directed to export your image automatically by the software. It's you'd have to try really hard to save right down on top of it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, and that was not intended as a criticism. It's just some of us have become used to working with, say, something like Aperture, where you can always revert back to that original image because of the way that they apply the effects. Right.
And and so in Photos and Aperture, and you can revert back to the original. In Tonality here, you can go back and revert to the original as well.
Oh, okay.
But it's by the very nature of photo editing, when you're making changes to the document and exporting it out, that's a destructive process. If you want to maintain the ability to go back and adjust it, as I said, use a smart object in Photoshop, or again, just save one of our native file formats, and then you can open that up again. That's a great workflow tip.
Great.
So it's like a candy store. Where do you want to go next?
Today's edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Casper, a better mattress for a better night's sleep. To find out more, try one for 100 days and get a $50 discount. Visit casper.com/MacVoices and use the code MacVoices when you place your order. There are plenty of ways to increase your productivity, but there's one sure way to kill it, and that's by not getting a decent night's sleep. Now, I've been known to go to bed late and get up early, so that makes it all the more important that the sleep I do get is as good as I can make it. That's why I love my Casper mattress. You might not think that a mattress can make that big a difference, and you would be dead wrong. I've spent too many nights on less than ideal mattresses that leave me more tired than when I went to bed, and with an aching back to boot. Casper has worked hard to create a new hybrid mattress that combines premium latex foam with memory foam to give you better nights and brighter days. Obsessively engineered and at a shockingly fair price, as they would say. Even better, you don't have to go get a Casper mattress. Your Casper mattress will come to you. Just visit casper.com/MacVoices, pick the size, and get $50 off your purchase by using the code MacVoices. A few days later, your mattress will arrive at your doorstep, and you will have 100 days to try it. No showrooms, no delivery fees, no delivery men to scrape your walls. In the amazingly unlikely event that your Casper mattress isn't everything I say it is, you can return it painlessly. They'll even send someone to pick it up. But that's not going to happen, believe me. You're going to love your Casper mattress as much as I do. So, with no risk, $50 off, free shipping, delivery to your door, and 100 nights to give it a try, what are you waiting for? Go to casper.com/MacVoices right now, use the code MacVoices for the discount, and your Made in America Casper mattress will be on its way. You can thank me later. Speaking of thanks to Casper for a great night's sleep and for their support of MacVoices.
I do want to bring up one more image and show you the snap heel to tonality thing, because I've got an image that a lot of us probably will shoot with our kids and or others. This is a shot I took of my daughter last weekend, and it's a NEF file. And I love this shot, right? She's my daughter. What can I say? But stupidly, I forgot there's a little rope swing right here. So how many of you have positioned somebody in a great scene, right, and only to have a telephone pole or a telephone wire stringing through here? So this is where snap heel is just so quick and easy. I can come in here, and I'm just going to come down. I'm going to mark this and just say erase. And so we'll get rid of that real quick. And this is in our front yard. So, when we're talking about, there's a lot of talk right now about, I can zoom in and get that a little closer. But there's a lot of talk right now about, in the olden days, we would we would print images, stick them in shoe boxes, and they'd be archived, forever. Well, today in a digital world, we need to make sure that we're preserving the images that look their best. And so before I would ever print this in a photo album, share it online, or put it on my photo hard drive in a saved area that I build a family calendar for the year, I would want to do a couple of quick corrections. So in this case, I corrected that. I'm going to bop right back over to tonality where we were, and I'll see how a quick kind of a portrait preset. So as it's loading, I'm going to go ahead and click the preset button here. I'm going to go straight into portraits, and I'm going to see if there's one that I like here. And there's one that I really love called Fashion Magazine. And if you can kind of see, there's the before, there's the after. There's a nice vignette that's applied there. And if we zoom in a little bit, it's just I think it's a great look for this particular image. I will say that the vignette's a little bit strong. So this is one where I might go in and I might use the preset as a starting point, and then go into the adjustments and maybe lighten it up a little bit, or again, feather it, add a little luminosity, make sure it's placed where I want it to be. So again, there's where we started with a very neutral black and white conversion, and here's where we're ending with a little bit more emphasis on her face, a little bit more sharpness, and so forth. You can see all of these functions that make up the preset are conveniently noted in the adjustment panel in the gold tone of the font.
That's a really nice touch, because it's easy to lose track of what you've been playing with, especially if you close the triangle again. So the fact that I know I went in and messed with the color filter, I can go back and maybe unmess with it, or continue to play with it.
Exactly. So we've covered intensify, snap heal, and tonality. If you have any questions on those particular products, I can cover them right now, or we can kind of move into a couple different areas.
Just one quick thing that occurs to me.
Mm-hmm.
When you are loading just what you've done, you're moving between applications. There's no saving of that file on an intermittent basis. It's just taking it and handing it off, if you will, to the other application. Is that correct?
That's correct. In fact, that's a great point. So let's say you start with noiseless to eliminate noise. You move to snap heal to eliminate unwanted objects. I kind of think of those two products as our corrective tools. And then you move into intensifier, tonality, or FX to add the creative touches. In each case, we're maintaining that file that you've edited. We're maintaining that along the way. So, we don't want to make the decision about whether you wanted to save an intermittent version or not. I think in some cases, what I'll do is, once I've corrected a file, maybe noiseless snap heal, I might save the snap heal one just as a matter of course, and then so I have it archived, and then move on to a couple of different creative directions. So that's a great point about that. So
if I can I go backwards if I want to? In other words, if I went from snap heal over to tonality, play with it there, and I got it just right, except for maybe I found something that I want to take back out. Can I go back, move back over, and tweak it? Yeah,
you'll actually be sending a new photo back over to snap heal, because snap heal really doesn't have an idea that it's been that image that you originally sent over has been edited in tonality.
So I'm not going to be able to go back and adjust something that I'd adjusted previously. I mean, I will be able to, but I'll be adjusting it, like you say, on a new photo.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be sending that back. Now, again, if you save in the native file format in that intermittent step, you'll be able to go back from that standpoint. But you will be sending a new file back from successive steps, if that answers your question.
Perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So in this particular case, I just hit the space bar to bring that up. It's very familiar to guys. So in this case, this is a great example of digital noise in an image, where it's a great shot, lovely people, Ian and Lindsay. But you can see there's chrominance and luminance noise in the background, and this is caused when you're shooting in low light and you crank up the ISO on your cameras, and that enhances the sensor's ability to expose the image properly. But as a consequence of that, you get this digital noise, and it's just a consequence of just not having enough light hitting the sensor at the time it needs to take the picture. And the great thing about this is that we can solve this, and we have solved it with noiseless. I will also add that we've adapted the program to work really great with RAW files and really great with smartphone files. So smartphones, I don't know if you've ever taken a photo with your smartphone in a low light situation. That little camera has some processing power, but it's not the same equivalent of a high-end DSLR. The other thing is that when you pinch and zoom those smartphones, you'll often introduce noise, because now you're into a digital zoom mode with the thing, and it just the sensor performance isn't there. So let's look at noiseless here. I'll just go ahead and drag down to the dock into noiseless CK, and when the software opens up, what it does is it automatically processes and chooses a preset that it thinks is going to make the image look better. So you can see the in the image here, you can see the family of controls here: cropping, batch processing, things like that. And then over off on the right hand side, you've got our presets and adjustment panels. Now I look at this and I go, wow, that really cleaned up a lot of noise, but it made the after side of the image very smooth. So I can do two things. One, I can drop the opacity of that down and reintroduce a little bit of the digital noise, but still clean it up a little bit. Or I can just choose a different preset. So if I go to maybe a moderate style, you can see some of those details in her eyes or light are coming out. You can see some of the details in the hair. And again, we're really zoomed in because noise is going to be most prevalent and perceptually when you're kind of zoomed in. But if you look at this, if you look at this side by side, that's a great photo now, right?
Yeah,
it's just a great photo compared to the original, and oftentimes you only see it when you're zoomed in, but there's the original, so you can see the noise most behind Ian's shoulder there, and in the windows there, and now it's gone.
Very nice.
Okay, so now let's talk about the adjustments. So again, the presets are very easy to use. No special training required. The software's gonna take care of it on its own, and then you're gonna basically move little sliders or choose other presets to make the image look to your taste. Over on the adjust side, and again, I'm gonna go into over on the adjust side here. I've got a number of adjustments that dealing with noise reduction, structure and details. This is where we're adding back detail to the image. And then we've got a function called filter. And what filter does is it actually removes the noise reduction, kind of a double negative there, based on highlights, midtones, and shadows. So let's walk through these. When the light preset was applied, you can see these are the adjustment controls that have been applied to make that preset work. And again, you're seeing these with the yellow progress indicators. So we can see that some color noise reduction was created, and that's I'm sure that's to take care of some of this color or chrominance noise right there. Luminance is noise that appears in highlighted areas. We've added back some detail with our structure and our detail slider. So that's how you're getting, if we kind of zoom in here a little bit, that's how you're retaining some of this really nice detail in our eyes and hair, right? And then again, the filter side, the filters are, again, kind of interesting. It's a little bit of a double negative. What you're doing is you're filtering out the noise reduction based on that tonal range. So if I want no noise reduction in any of the highlights, for example, I would drag that down, and it would remove the noise reduction in the highlighted areas. So again, I hope that's understandable to you, but the presets kind of handle most of the hard work and heavy lifting there. So does noiseless make sense for you, Chuck? That's a useful tool?
It makes perfect sense. And again, I'm hoping that this translates, because the differences are subtle until you do the zoom in, and then they become very evident. And I'm hoping it translates over. But folks, in case it doesn't, I'm telling you, it is making quite a difference. If you've ever struggled with noise in low light photos, I'm looking forward to taking some of my photos that I haven't been happy with and dropping it in here and seeing what happens.
Right. And actually a couple of other points. So the easiest way to describe conditions under which noise appears is to kind of lump it all under the low light conditions. But it really goes into how much light is hitting that sensor at the time you're snapping the shot. So other shooting situations might be things like an event inside of a building. Right, oftentimes you don't think about the kind of light that's inside of a room making an impact on noise. Action cam shots, as I said, smartphone shots. Anytime when you're panning a camera, you're trying to capture fast motion. The camera is overcompensating. A DSLR camera will overcompensate, and it'll fire that shutter way faster. Well, unless you've got a ton of sun coming in, like you're at a track meet at high noon, some noise can be introduced. And so, we've really designed the software to allow you to edit as many photos, as are needed under a lot of different shooting scenarios. And this is a good point for me to bring up batch processing. So our batch process, it's especially cool with noise reduction, because as you say, you might come away from a shooting session and have 10, 15, 20 images that you like, but you don't want to go through and hit every single one of them. So what you would do is you would come in here, and I'm just going to pop in, oops, not noise. That's fine. We'll go to noises here. And I don't have I've got a few images here, so I'll just grab those, open them up. And what it'll do is it'll pop them into the batch processing window. You'll do a select all, and you hit process. Now, when you hit process here, the coolest part about it is that you've got all kinds of capabilities for you to automatically adjust your images. So you can choose where you want to export those 3 files that you're going to process all at once. You can choose the noise reduction level. So these are tapping into the presets for that were in the program over here, or you can just let the program automatically choose it. You've got capability for doing the file settings. If I choose, say, a TIFF, I get some different file settings here versus a JPEG. You can size the image. So let's say you've gone to a birthday party, it's inside, you've shot a bunch of shots, there's 10 of them that you want to share on Facebook right away, right? So the first thing you do is you run a batch on these to take care of all the noise in the shots, but you might want to say, hey, look, for Facebook, I'd like all my shots to be resized at 600 and 400 by 400, just to make them manageable and load quickly. So you've got control over image sizing. And because you don't want to overwrite the name of your original files, you might put a suffix on there and say, I want it to say Facebook afterwards. Okay, so you can. This is a long title, but maybe I'll just do FB here. So you can see that's been added to the end of the sample file name. And now, once you've got all these set up, you've even got the ability to add what we call a batching preset. So if you know that every time you throw some stuff at noiseless here, it's headed to Facebook or it's headed to a photo album. You can set up these batch processes where you can call it up again, very quickly and easily. So if I name this, MacVoices, for instance, say okay, now all of a sudden I've got a MacVoices batching preset. And again, if I go ahead and I process these things, it'll just go through and process according to those settings. Let me choose a folder here real quick. I'll just choose my desktop, and I'll hit process, and you'll see how that works. So it takes each one of the images, and it's going to run through noiseless and do the settings that I selected. It's going to resize the image, and it's going to drop all those things down onto the desktop for us. So if we come down here, you can see this says -FB, -FB, -FB. It's that fast and that's easy. And they've all been resized. So if I do a Command I there, you can see that it's been resized to 600 by 400. How's that sound?
That's impressive. That's impressive. There's a lot of depth here. And we go back to the whole experimentation thing, that I'm going to want to get in here and play and experiment and not just with current images, but I think go back with old images, because it feels like so much of this stuff is very accessible.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I brought that NASA image forward early in the show, because that was one where I'm just sort of scratching my head on a Saturday. I see a little news feed come by that says they uploaded 8,500 images to Flickr. And I thought, well, I'm kind of interested in that. I'd like to go check those out. And then I found they're in the public domain, and I could do an export from Flickr. So now I'm going to see what I can do, and I can, like you say, creatively explore, see if we can improve those older images. A lot of people these days, there's services popping up everywhere that let you, take your shoebox of old images that you shot in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, and they'll scan them for you, and they'll hand you back a DVD with those scanned photos. That doesn't mean, and they're digitized, of course, right? They're scanned. So now you can go in and you can use Snap Heal or Noiseless or Intensify. You can take that great image of, of your dad, your mom, your dog, or whatever, and or your old house that you used to live in as a kid, and you can do some interesting things with it.
Yeah. And that's, folks, I'll tell you right now, if you haven't done that, you've heard me talk about it before on the show, but if you haven't done that, do it now, because those photos are fading. They're getting crispier by the day, and they need to be they need to be preserved, because you don't want to lose them. That's one, whether you know it or not, it's one of the most precious things you have.
Yeah, it sure is. So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to pop into to our an application called Focus, which is a very simple but really, really interestingly powerful kind of software product. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about on Noiseless?
No, sir. Looking good.
Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and quit. Won't save that. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in here, and we're going to go to Focus. So this is, I guess I'll try this one. It's by my friend Lori Rubin. She's a fantastic nature photographer and award-winning photographer. And I'm just going to go ahead and this time I'll open with Focus CK here. And the focus window, again, drop dead simple. You've got a few of the presets here. It hasn't taken on all the characteristics of our family of products, because it is really just a very, very simple product for letting you draw attention to the most important part of your image. So in this case, I'm going to, even though it's not a portrait, I'm going to choose the portrait preset, because I know it puts these things called focus rings that I'm moving around on the screen. And these are tuggable handles. They can be rotated, okay, so and moved very, very easily. And of course, what I'm doing here is I'm resizing this to encompass, most of the, the hummingbird there. And it's automatically applied a blur strength. I can increase that blur strength, or I can decrease it. I can increase the vignette that's applied in the blur, if I want, and so on and so forth. Again, if I want to sharpen or make clear the center area, what we call the in focus area, I can do that very quickly and easily. And then I can compare and contrast. So here's the before, there's the after. And again, if your eyes like mine, I'm just being drawn to that bird just a little bit more. There's a little bit more emphasis happening right there than it would otherwise be. And it's just that little final polish that photographers like to apply to their images to help direct the eye. Now, you might wonder, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but you might wonder what these other presets are. They really relate to those tuggable, what we call focus lines. So in a nature image, a lot of times you're looking at horizontal, horizons. Architecture, you're looking up at buildings, right? So we make these lines, and again, you can kind of slenderize them if you want to. Macros, great for food or flower photography. Tilt shift is kind of fun. Tilt shift, if you've ever seen those little miniaturized looks, a lot of times people will take pictures of cabs or boats or cityscapes, and you can kind of distort the blur in the focus so it looks like they're miniaturized, and that's what our tilt shift is. Custom is a very interesting tool, and it's for all those other situations where you might want to have custom focus on stuff. So you see, when I use the portrait side of things, you were dealing with sort of gross adjustments, like this wing is a little bit out of focus, but this part of the wing is in focus. When you use the custom setting, it blurs everything, but it allows you to come in here, and I'm just going to adjust the brush size, and it allows you to very, very easily paint exactly what you want in focus. Okay, so I'm not being super precise here, but I think you get where I'm going with it. So then when you're off of it, you can see that just the parts I painted are the ones that are in focus. So it's really cool. Where I've seen this used elsewhere is when people want to separate the foreground subject from the background. So let's say you're taking a picture of an athlete, right? So their legs are standing apart. Maybe they got a football or a javelin in their hands, and you want to keep that subject. We want to separate them from the background. Well, you can use this custom focus brush to just sort of brush them in, and it's irregular, right? Because they're standing there, they've got legs and arms and that kind of stuff. So you can just keep that right in focus, and everything else a little blurry or vignetted, and it really stands to separate those two dimensions. So it's a fun little tool. Focus is.
Wow.
Yeah, and now what I'm actually going to do here is I'm actually going to open this one in FX Photo Studio. Now, this is the sixth product in our creative kit, and I'm just showing this to you to kind of give you a feeling for what FX Photo Studio is, and what it represents is a series of creative filters that are all neatly categorized here, right? But each filter that you choose, like if we choose, say, the color fantasy filter, I mean, we can get really crazy with this stuff. And when we talk about exploration, it's ridiculous, right? You can do so much with this stuff. If we like the grunge look, we want to do something like that. If we want something a little bit more stylized from a color, like a color strokes standpoint, we can easily do that. If we want some sketching stuff, I always like this one because you can do kind of stylized sketching very quickly and very easily. And in each one of these cases, you can make adjustments. You can also save presets. If let's say I like the charcoal sketch and the pen sketch, and let's come in here and maybe do a Hollywood style, FX. Let's do the Sparta look, and I click that. If I click the favorites palette, these are the ones that are going to pop up. So if I look at all the effects that I just starred for you, I can see them right here, and that's a way to kind of keep things fresh, but still categorize them. We even have this thing called roll the dice, right? So as I click this, it's gonna switch between up to 200 different presets that are available in the program. It's a fantastic little creative tool, and it won't be for everybody, but it'll be for a lot of people. It's fun to use.
And the fact that the roll the dice tool, I love, because that's going to give me things that I would never have thought about. I'd have probably passed over looking at them in the thumbnails, and yet when you click them, it's like, well, okay, that's not bad.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly right.
Very
So
nice.
we've spent a good deal of time. Just to recap, we spent a good deal of time walking through the Macphun applications that make up Creative Kit 2016. It's a brand new release. It was released literally yesterday as we were recording this show. I don't know when it's going to go live on your site, but as we're recording this show, it was released on the 15th of October. And it combines 6 of our best-selling photo applications. They work great with one another. I think you could see how tripping from say a noiseless to a snap heel to a tonality to even an FX Photo Studio is super easy. It's a different take on workflow. And we think it's one that people are going to not even have to warm up to. They're gonna fall in love with, because it creates you've got all the power of each standalone at your fingertips. Okay, so I just want to recap what we've done here during the show. We've looked at all 6 of our Macphun applications that make up Creative Kit 2016. As Chuck and I are recording the show, Creative Kit was literally just launched yesterday. So these are fresh, new, powerful, and creative applications. Free trials are available at macphun.com. That's MACPHUN.com. And I really encourage your viewers to download that trial. It's absolutely free. There's no smoke and mirrors here. Everything you saw today was me live, just kind of poking my way through the product, and it's as easy as I demonstrated it. And I think you can see that Chuck as well. I really encourage people to try this on their own images.
What kind of pricing do we have for this, Kevin? I don't think we've gotten into that yet.
Okay, so Creative Kit 2016 has a retail price of $149.99. So you're getting 6 applications for $150. For the first few weeks of our launch here, we're also including a free 20-page photo book. And so this is a book that has a retail value of $55, and everybody who buys Creative Kit between now and November 15th will be able to take their creations that they've done in Macphun and build them into those into a beautiful photo book forever, that they can share and save forever.
That's a real nice touch. I think I'd like a photo book of just the things you were showing today. They were just so compelling.
I can make them for you.
Hey, one other thing I did want to ask, and I got past it when we were actually showing. I noticed the little progress lines, indicating things are being rendered. What kind of hardware are we showing this on? Because I think it's fair that people want to get an expectation.
Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. I'm actually running, and I won't call it creaky, but I'm actually running on a late 2013 model MacBook Pro.
Oh wow!
And I think I've got I probably have 8 gigabytes of RAM. I've got about 50. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I've got about 20 gigabytes of available hard disk space. So out of whatever, half a gigabyte. So I am running down in the lower 10% of my available hard disk space. But the minimum requirements for the program are literally 4 gigabytes of RAM for any of the programs. And as I mentioned, you want to be running in Mavericks or later. To 10.8, I think that was.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's important so that people can set an expectation for what kind of performance they're going to get. But if they're running something that can run Yosemite or Mavericks, Yosemite, can't do it. Yosemite Mavericks El Capitan, you're going to see this kind of performance, give or take. This is not running on a souped-up Mac Pro sitting under the desk. So
no, I'd love to have one, but I don't.
Yeah, you and me both. Hey, Kevin, it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and I like it because it makes things that you go and look at some of the Photoshop tutorials, and 25 steps later you get to see what kind of thing that you've created. Here, click a couple things, drag a couple sliders, get real-time feedback, and it's going to encourage, I think, a lot of people to do more with their photos and play with them.
Yeah, Macphun is. I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, Macphun, we make things exclusively for the Mac platform, and I think it's in that vein that we can eke every bit of performance out of the machines. We know all the tricks, and I think it's a pleasurable experience. I mean, I edit photos whether it's on my phone or on my computer for fun, right? And I think a lot of people it's not only relaxing, but you're working with your own photos, so how that's cool to be to itch that creative or scratch that creative itch, I guess. But I will say, I hope what's come across today is that the tools are perfectly suited for everybody from the first-time Mac user, the consumer, the person with a snapshot or just an iPhone, all the way up to the pros using their multi-$1,000 DSLRs. So we really have tried to span the gamut. As you saw in a lot of the demonstrations, there's one click. Wow, I love that. I'm taking that. But then there's also, you flip a panel and it's like, holy cow, there's a lot of control here, which is what the professionals demand. So it's something for everyone.
No question. So Macphun.com, folks, go download the demos, play with them. You're going to be able to do everything that Kevin did and a whole lot more. Kevin, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. Bye-bye.
All right, we'll be in touch. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. I'm going to go play with some photos. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Mac Voices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the Mac Voices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest Mac Voices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free Mac Voices magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.